Hola! I'm so excited to teach you about the future tense today. Can you believe you have survived so long in Spanish without learning how to conjugate in the future? Okay, so let's get started with a little video. What I would like you to do is watch me tell this little story about what I'm going to do tonight, which is future for today. And I want you to pick out the different verbs that you hear. Try to write down maybe the infinitive of the verb and then maybe if you were able to hear how I used it. Okay, and see if you can pick out as many of the verbs as possible. As you're watching the video, you're not going to have the script. But after you're done watching the video, I will show you the script and you can check and maybe watch the video again to see how it matches up. But I want you to try and pick out the future on your own before I actually give you the notes on how to conjugate the future. Hola. Esta noche será bastante divertida. Iré a Los Ángeles y encontraré músicos famosos. Esta noche tendrán un concierto que se llama el Golden Gods Awards y es como el concurso de los Grammys, pero para la música heavy metal. Habrá muchos conjuntos allí. Algunos serán famosos y otros no. Los entrevistarán en la alfombra negra. Yo no quise comprar boletos para el concierto porque eran muy caros, pero yo iré para ver si podré conocer a muchos músicos y sacaré selfies con ellos. Espero tener mucha suerte. Before watching the rest of this video, I hope you wrote down the things that you heard. Okay, so here's the script. This is what I said, and you will notice the verbs that are highlighted are the verbs that are in the future tense. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video now and look at the verbs that are in yellow and see if you can find a pattern. Look at the difference between the AR, ER, and IR verbs, the yo form, the L form, the ellos form. See if you can figure it out before I show you on this video how to conjugate the future. So pause, think, jot down some ideas of what you think is going on with future tense. All right. So the reason you've been able to survive without knowing future is that there's 3 different ways to express the future in Spanish. The first one is just by using the present tense. Okay, we use it when we refer to the immediate future. So when I say something like vamos al cine, it could actually mean that we're going to the movies tonight, and I'm saying this at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The way you've been using it most of the time is by using the verb ir, followed by a and the infinitive of the verb that you're doing in the future. So, for example, vamos a ir al cine, vamos a comer, vamos a tomar apuntes, vamos a tomar un examen. The third way would be to just conjugate the verb into the future tense. So vamos a ir al cine would actually be the verb ir in the future tense, which would become iremos al cine. So the way we form future tense, you'll notice that on these endings, instead of putting a little dash like I usually did, I put a plus. And that is because no matter what the verb is, you're going to leave it in the infinitive, and you are going to add these endings to the infinitive. So you only have one set of endings to memorize for the entire future tense, because whether the verb is AR, ER, or IR, that's going to show when you leave it in the infinitive, and then you're just going to add an E with an accent to the yo form, as for tú, a and a for él y usted, add hemos for nosotros, es for vosotros, and an for ustedes and ellos. So absolutely, AR, ER, and IR all have the same endings which get added. So you're not taking out the AR, ER, and IR, you're adding this to the infinitive. Let's look at the verb escribir as an example. You would leave it as escribir and just add the ending. So it would look like escribiré, escribirás, escribirá, escribiremos, and escribiréis, escribirán. And every verb works this way except for the following irregulars. Okay, with the irregulars, you have to memorize a different, I guess it would be a root that's kind of different. So for example, for tener, instead of being teneré, tenerás, and so forth, it goes to tendré. Okay, and then you add your endings to this. So it'd be tendré, tendrás, tendrá, tendremos, tendréis, tendrán. For venir, it becomes vendré, vendrás, and so forth. Poner, pondré, pondrás. Salir, saldré, saldrás. Valer, which means to be worth. Valdré, valdrás, valdrá, and so forth. Hacer becomes haré, harás, hará. Decir becomes diré, dirás, dirá. So a quick little thing, it's kind of like the E becomes a D. It's kind of like the I becomes a D. It's kind of like the E becomes a D, kind of like the I becomes a D, kind of like the E becomes a D. But then with hacer, it's more like the CE disappear and the EC disappear. If that helps you, if you're visual, that might help you remember them. Okay, a few more. Querer becomes querré. Oops, I haven't been including the endings, so let me redo that one. Querré, querrás, querrá. So that's like we're deleting the E altogether. Poder is podré, podrás, podrá. So that's like deleting the E. Saber becomes sabré, sabrás. It's like deleting the E. Caber, which means to fit, becomes cabré, cabrás, and so forth. It's like having it without the E. And haber, which means there will be. You only use it in the third person. So I'm just going to go ahead and write it out since it's in the third person. And it's, again, like taking out the vowel. Okay? So you have to memorize those. And every time you conjugate these in the future tense, you can't just leave it in the infinitive. You have to change it to these roots and then add the endings to it. Okay. You are going to practice conjugating these on the Edmodo quiz that I'm going to give you, but one more thing in your notes is the future of probability. And this is just another use of the future tense. And what's a little bit confusing about it is that the future of probability is conjugated as the future tense. So when you see the verb written out, it is just in the future. But it is used to wonder or guess about right now, about the present. It is not used in a future use. So, for example, if you come to class and I'm not there and there's a sub and you're like, gosh, I wonder where my teacher is. You are wondering where I am at that moment right then, and so you would say, ¿Dónde estará la profesora? Notice that estará is in the future, but I'm wondering where is she right now? Okay, another example is you can't find your homework, you're trying to show it to me, but you can't find it, and you're like, oh, my homework must be at home. So you're going to say, mi tarea estará en mi casa. Okay, it looks like future tense, but what you're saying is, oh, my homework is at home. Okay, you're not sure, you're wondering or guessing, and so you use future tense for that. If you're sitting somewhere wondering what time it is and you're not wearing a watch and don't have access to a watch, you might say something like, ¿Qué hora será? I wonder what time it is right now. We're using future tense, but we're wondering about the time right now. Okay, one final example. Maybe you're daydreaming in class because you're bored and you're wondering what your dog's doing, and your dog often sleeps on the couch. So you're like, oh, I bet my dog is sleeping on the couch. You would express that in Spanish by using the future tense and saying, mi perro dormirá en el sofá. Okay, so we're using future tense. The verbs are conjugated in the future, but the use or the meaning of it is wondering or guessing about right now. Okay, as opposed to all of these future tense verbs, I am using it to say what will happen in the future. Okay, what will happen in the future is the use of the future tense. Okay, you are now ready to stop the video and take your Edmodo quiz. Be sure to use your notes so you can get 100%. Gracias.